ॐ तव कथामृतं तप्तजीवनं कविभिरीडितं कल्मषापहं शरवणमङ्गलं शरणदाततं भुवि वनन्ति भूरिदा जनाः. Your words are like nectar, bring life to scorched souls. They are praised by poets and remove all sin. They are auspicious to hear, wonderful and exalted. Those who spread these words throughout the world are truly giving souls. Welcome to our class on the Gospel of Ramakrishna. We're on the chapter Visit to Sinthi Brahmo Samaj. This is page 639, and the date is Monday, October 20th, 1884. So this this is a long chapter. It had different sections to it, actually. This celebration that they have, this autumn celebration of the Brahmo Samaj, seems to coincide with Diwali. So all of this is taking place after this Kali Puja, and then Sri Ramakrishna, he went to visit these Marwari devotees from there. So this is where we stopped last time. So Sri Ramakrishna was having a conversation with the pundit. Master, please describe samadhi to us. So this is Sri Ramakrishna is asking the pundit to describe samadhi to him. Yeah. So there's, of course, quite a bit of irony to this. A pundit will only know from books and scriptures. He won't have any direct experience. Very few people have that direct experience. So Sri Ramakrishna, he's testing the pundit, you could say, or starting the conversation, and knowing that he'll be able to explain things from his own direct experience. So the pundit says there are two kinds of samadhi: savikalpa and nirvikalpa. So this is a very traditional explanation that we get that corresponds to the teachings of Raja Yoga, Patanjali's Raja Yoga, that the nirvikalpa will be the highest type of samadhi when there's no sense of I. The savikalpa samadhi, there's some activity taking place, vikalpa, some activity is taking place, basically restricted to some sense of awareness. So if one is in that state of samadhi and one has that feeling, yes, that I've transcended everything, I'm one with everything, we can say something like that, savikalpa samadhi. And nirvikalpa samadhi will be when even that disappears. For me, the best interpretation of this is Swamiji's hymn of samadhi, where he talks about this, nothing but this flow of I, nothing else. That's savikalpa samadhi. Then lo, even that disappears. Now, this nirvikalpa samadhi will be more or less the same for everyone and every interpretation. There's not too much room for differences of interpretation. The mind is not functioning as we understand the mind. The mind is the vrittis are not there, and there's perfect merging. No one can say exactly what that state is like, but after coming down from that state, the one is filled with joy and bliss, and some transformation takes place. Savikalpi samadhi, this will be a huge range of different things, from what Thakur likes to call bhava samadhi, which will be all different types of visions and experiences and the divine sights. The one thing that will be in common, it seems, is that at least for Sri Ramakrishna, when he's in that state of bhava samadhi, he's not aware of anything external. That means that the senses aren't functioning. If there are sounds, he won't hear them. He won't be seeing things or anything. But his mind will be uh, ascending to some divine level, a realm that we don't normally have access to, and so that'll be that type of. If we say bhava samadhi is also savikalpa samadhi, this will be for the devotee with some type of experience. And in that state, Ramakrishna, uh, he could actually have some communion and even conversation with the Divine Mother. He would come down from that state and said, "Do you know what Mother showed me? Which of the devotees, how far they had gone in spiritual life?" And so there's a lot of scope for differentiation in the savikalpa samadhi. Nirvikalpa samadhi, uh, if it's absolute merging, then if a wave merges in the ocean, that wave is no longer a wave, is one with the ocean. Every wave that merges in the ocean will be one with the ocean in the same way, more or less. We can say that. So, uh, so this pundit, this is the way pundit is explaining it. There are two kinds of samadhi, savikalpa and nirvikalpa. In nirvikalpa samadhi, the functioning of the mind stops altogether. Okay, so this is a very standard way of understanding this. We find this the very first verse in our Raja Yoga, that this chitta, the mind stuff, the way this is explained in the yoga system, and yoga is based on the Sankhya psychology, is that there's the mind is some type of very subtle material that can take a certain type of shape and can have different impressions in it. And if we think of it as water, it can have ripples on it, all different things like that. So he's saying that in nirvikalpa samadhi, the functioning of the mind stops altogether. So this nirodha takes place of all the vrittis. All the vrittis will be modifications. So if we think of the waves again, that all of the waves will disappear, but do they really disappear? What happens when a wave disappears? It doesn't go anyplace. It becomes one with the ocean. So there's a very subtle type of subtle distinction. And let me read the next line, because Sri Ramakrishna says yes, and then he'll refer to something else here. The mind completely takes the form of reality. Tadakara karita. Now, this is very helpful for me, at least, because if we simply think of samadhi as the mind not functioning, then it's very hard for us to distinguish that from the state of deep sleep. The mind is not functioning in the state of deep sleep, but it just goes into some kind of dull state there, covered by ignorance, we can say. This is saying that tadakara karita. Tadakara will mean that somehow, if we think of this chitta, when, of course, this is theoretical, that if the mind, if we're looking at a chair, this chitta takes the form of the chair, and this is how we see a chair. This is the theory of the Sankhya, the way they'll explain it. So this is saying this tad means that infinite absolute reality. Somehow the mind has taken the form of that tad, of Brahman, of that infinite absolute reality. So it's not exactly the same as just the wave disappearing. It's really the wave becoming one with the ocean. So we have actually two different models, we can say, to make this mind, this nirvritti state, when the mind is not functioning somehow. One is that, yes, it's become one with everything. So this is that pure mind becoming the same as the pure self. The other is that the mind becomes so one-pointed, ekagrita, that it merges into that single point, so that there are no extraneous vrittis at all. So, just to give us some way of understanding that what's taking place here is not simply this mind stops functioning. Mind can stop functioning for many reasons that won't bring enlightenment. Either it gets all drawn in together, that perfect concentration into that the real nature of the self, or it just through the purity takes the form of the self. So that mind is an awakened mind. The other is a mind that's sleeping. We can say they're both without vrittis in the normal sense. This is why Ramakrishna, he always makes a distinction that when people say that God cannot be realized through the mind, he makes a little distinction. He says, no, it's not entirely true. He says, cannot be experienced by the ordinary mind. But this pure mind is not the same as the sleeping mind. This perfectly pure mind that can take the form of reality or can merge into that or become one with that pure mind becomes indistinguishable because it takes the form of it. It becomes that, really. So this is how we can think of mind. Again, this is not exactly this Sankhya model, because the Sankhya model, the mind is an instrument. Here, the mind is just the surface of this ocean of consciousness, and that wave on the surface that goes back and becomes one with the whole ocean. If it realizes that experience, now I'm one with the ocean, that'll be this savikalpa samadhi of the Raja Yoga. And when it merges completely, so there's not even that awareness, there's only that oneness. Then it's become that. Tadakara karita. It's a very interesting way of understanding this. So Swami Krishna is saying, yes, the mind completely takes the form of reality. And here he quotes the Sanskrit. Very rarely does Swami Krishna quote Sanskrit verses. Occasionally something from, and very often he'll refer to a verse without quoting it. Say very often he'll talk about, the Gita says that wherever one sees a special manifestation of beauty, intelligence, art, anything like that, no, there's this, that I'm specially manifest there, Krishna said, but he won't quote it in the Sanskrit. A few things he does. This is one of the things that he mentions that. So the mind completely takes the form of reality. That's in quotes. The distinction between the meditator and the object of meditation does not exist. So if we say savikalpa samadhi, there's some awareness. That means that this awareness is there and the object of awareness is there. So the pure self is experiencing the joy and bliss of realization, of enlightenment somehow. That's the object. The experiential object will be that state of samadhi itself. Here, this goes beyond even that. So the distinction between the meditator and the object of meditation does not exist, the nirvikalpas. Then, now Sri Ramakrishna is going to mention all different types of samadhi. And these are things that I don't know personally where they come from, what school they belong to, where he heard these, if these are important distinctions or not. But anyhow, he says there are two other kinds of samadhi, chetana and jada. Now, jada, we'll assume is this nirvikalpa state because it's as if one is dead, unmoving completely. Chetana, I don't know what the real distinction with this is. He says, Narada and Shukadeva attained Chetana Samadhi. Isn't that true, sir? Now, so this Chetana Samadhi will probably be some type of savikalpa Samadhi. Now, the reason I say that is that Thakur says, even with Shukadeva, if Shukadeva had actually merged with that ocean of consciousness, that probably he couldn't come back even from that. Yeah. So the Thakur, very interestingly, he says there are different ideas. Some people say that Shukadeva saw that ocean of consciousness. Some that he came, touched it. Some that he drank a few drops of it. If he had drunken a little bit more than that, he couldn't come back down again. So I'm going to assume that this Chaitanya and Jada somehow correspond a little bit to the savikalpa and nirvikalpa. I think that's safe. Huh? Say something like that. So now he's asking this Pundit, isn't that true, sir? Pundit, yes, sir, that is so. Now, how much this Pundit knows of these things, because these are not commonly used terms. We don't find this in Patanjali, as far as I know, and I don't know where they come from. Anyhow, Pundit, so far he's with him. Yes, sir, that is so. Master, further, there are the Unmana Samadhi and the Sthita Samadhi. Isn't that true, sir? And now this Pundit is not even going to pretend to know what these things are. I also won't pretend to know. So the Pundit remained silent. He did not venture an opinion. So Sri Ramakrishna, he had such a vast knowledge, and he heard so many different discussions among the different sadhus and pundits and everything. He must have heard these things. They must belong to some different schools. I don't know. Do you know anything? No. Yeah. So these aren't things he's just making up. And even, see, the distinction sometimes between these different types of samadhi is only about how one goes into it. So this is why he talks about the 5 different types of samadhi, like a bird hopping from one branch to another, or the monkeys, or the ant going back and forth, the bird. But entering into it that's all the same. So if we want to ask the question, why is it that some great souls can enter into this nirvikalpa state, come back down from that state, and yet have their own interpretation of it? They won't all agree. They're all howling, they're speaking the same language, but they'll interpret it differently. This bhava samadhi, that we can understand. One has a vision of Krishna, one has a vision of Durga, that we can understand. But depending on the nature of the spiritual seeker, the nature of the mind, the cultural background, the philosophical understanding, all of these things, that will affect it, the way one interprets it afterwards. So if we look at all these great Buddhists who attain some enlightenment state, they won't see God dwelling everywhere, because that's not their language, and that's not the way the mindset that goes into that state. But they'll be filled with the joy and be free and have no attachment, and many things will be in common, but they can still interpret it differently, because we're back in the mind again. We're back into this human mind again. Transformed, we may say, but still, it'll still have its own understanding and way of explaining things. Master. Well, sir, so he's going to stop this particular conversation about samadhi. The practice of japa and austerity. Through the practice of japa and austerity, one can get occult powers, such as walking on the water of the Ganges. Isn't that true? So now again, he's gauging the understanding and spiritual stature of this particular pundit. We have to remember that these pundits, many of them were very, very serious spiritual seekers also. And fortunately, many of them came to Sri Ramakrishna. Yeah, others were just scholars, but it was never meant to be just a scholarly type of study. It's not like the Western philosophy, where they can study Descartes, they can study Hegel or something, but they don't try to live their life according to that type of philosophy. It's not part. It's an academic study. So these pundits were never supposed to be just academicians. So many of them had a little bit of this real deeper understanding and longing for God and humility. And Sri Ramakrishna met many of them, and through his grace, many of them, several of them, renounced everything. and became very holy people. So he's trying to gauge a little bit what this level of spirituality this Pandit has. So he asked the question, well, sir, through the practice of japa and austerity, one can get a cold power, such as walking in the water of the Ganges. Isn't that true, Pandit? Yes, one can, but a devotee doesn't want them. Okay, so Sri Ramakrishna will be happy that there's nothing to be gained by these. Maybe one can get a little power, one can get a big following, but in terms of spiritual life, there's nothing to be gained from these things. Only one's ego increases, when the body consciousness, the identification with the body increases. Otherwise, there's no possible advantage in spiritual life to having any of these types of siddhis, these types of spiritual power. Sri Ramakrishna is very, very clear. There's supposed to be 8 of them. If a person has even one of the 8, he won't realize God. So, of course, we don't have to worry. When you read the gospel, it sounds so simple. Yeah, be very careful that you don't go after these spiritual powers. Yeah, we can spend a whole lifetime trying. We won't get them either. But anyhow, this for him, it was a different story. For his disciples, a different story. Swamiji, I won't say it was exactly this type of siddhi, but he had this ability to experience things that we can't. Read minds, we can say, and things like that. The conversation continued for some time. The Pandit said he would visit the master at Dakshineswar the next Ekadashi day. Master, your boy is very nice. Yeah, these Pandits, don't confuse them with the sannyasins. Yeah, they'll be married people, just like priests, but they'll have a righteous type of family. Your boy is very nice, Pandit. Well revered, sir. All this is transitory. It is like the waves in a river. One goes down and another comes up. Yeah. So again, this will please Ramakrishna. So, Master, you have substance in you. Yeah, this transitory nature of the world is the way Sri Ramakrishna understood this doctrine of Maya and this doctrine of mithya, that this world is somehow false. He always explained it in terms of this transitory nature of the world. Transitory nature of the world, it means this life is flying by. This life is fleeting, that everything we have that we're attached to, we'll have to give up one day, or it'll give us up. That to have that perspective in life, that nothing will last. I remember this in the 60s, during this counterculture revolution, what people call the hippie movement, something that one of the bywords of that was "nothing lasts." I think it was John Kerouac, or Jack Kerouac, one of those. So when I was in college, I was very much impressed with this idea that I always would think about it. Yes, nothing lasts. And that means our moods, our attachments, our ups or downs, everything, that, this too shall pass. Yeah, I've mentioned many times that I grew up with that. That was my mother's answer to everything, any problem that I had. This too shall pass. It was something that Abraham Lincoln used to say, but it goes back to some old Persian saying. I looked at it one time. Yeah. So this transitory nature of the world. Yeah. That this young son, so attached to, one day he'll have to leave him behind. One day this young son will be an old man, hardly able to walk, on his deathbed. Yeah. Yeah, I think about that sometime when I see these newborn babies. Yeah. One day it'll be a helpless little thing, just like helpless now, but helpless on the final day of life. Yeah. And it'll go like that. That's the transitory nature of the world. So Thakur says, you have substance in you. After a few minutes, the Pandit saluted Sri Ramakrishna. He said, I shall have to perform my daily devotions. Please let me go. Now, this daily devotions, this will be this Sandhya Vandana and this Gayatri and all of that. Now, Sri Ramakrishna, he had his own theory about these things, that even for these Brahmin Pandits, this is a very sacred thing. he appreciated that. He is not that he thought that there's no value in these things, but he had this theory that as one progresses in spiritual life, that one can let these things drop off, and one doesn't have to be so careful about these things. That he used to say that this whole Sandhya Vandana, this whole ritualistic part, that it's enough if you do Gayatri. That'll emerge, and just repeating Gayatri, that'll be enough. And the one reaches a higher spiritual level, it just that's enough. You don't have to do all of these ritualistic things when you reach that point. So he's just saying that this pundit has some substance to him. So another way of saying that you've reached the stage where you don't have to be so particular. Here, we're having this nice conversation to everybody's benefit and everything. No special need for you to go and perform that. We see him saying this to others also. Yeah. So, Master, sit down. So he's not softening it at all. He's saying, yeah, what are you doing? Yeah, back to what. Yeah. The pundit sat down again. The conversation turned to hatha yoga. So this pundit, at least he's intelligent to know. We don't know if he's annoyed or if he understands exactly, but he's intelligent enough to know that this is a rare opportunity to have the company of Sri Ramakrishna. How much better than just repeating some mantra and doing some ritual. The conversation turned to hatha yoga. The pundit discussed the subject with the master in Hindustani. Yeah, generally these pundits and these sadhus who came to visit Sri Ramakrishna were from Upper India, what they used to say, so from UP or other places, yeah. So they would be Hindi speakers, Hindustani, Hindi speakers. As Sri Ramakrishna said, yes, that is also a form of austerity. So this hatha yoga, it forms a part of this Ashtanga yoga, the 8 stages of Raja Yoga, but it also forms its own separate kind of discipline, and not necessarily spiritual discipline. So there are those who will practice hatha yoga as a discipline in itself, not as part of this Ashtanga. As part of the Ashtanga yoga, it means being able to sit, to have asana, to be able to sit in a fixed pose for a good period of time without being disturbed by the body. If we want to sit for meditation, the mind will cause so many disturbances. If in addition to that, the body is causing disturbance, it'll be even more difficult if we're constantly feeling some aches and pains and things. So from that point of view, this taking care of this physical body is important. Other types of hatha yoga are for cleansing things and increasing length of life and siddhis and bodily types of things. So Sri Ramakrishna is sometimes a little bit strong against this hatha yoga. But here he says, yes, that is also a form of austerity. But the hatha yoga identifies himself with his body. Yeah, naturally. That if one is doing all of these postures and everything, that if one takes this point of view that everything is Maya, that means that body is also Maya. Those types of jnanis won't do this hatha yoga. Yeah. But this Raja Yoga is a realistic school. They accept this world, this prakriti. It's all a combination of the gunas, and it has its own reality to it. So this physical body also does. So the practitioners of Raja Yoga, yeah, they'll have no problem accepting that, yes, I have a body. I'm separate from it, but I have it. I function to it. If I want to see things well, the eyes have to work. I want to hear well, the ears have to work. So they'll take care of this body. These real jnanis, that they won't pay any attention to this physical health even. Yeah. They'll have to have tremendous strength of mind to live that type of life. But the hatha yogi identifies himself with his body. His mind dwells on his body alone. This was the problem that Sri Ramakrishna had with those who devoted all of their attention to this hatha yoga. Yeah. Others, many of the swamis of our order do some these asanas and things just to stay fit. It's a very helpful, beneficial type of thing. The Pandit took leave of the master. Sri Ramakrishna conversed with the Pandit's son. Now, this will be a very unusual conversation because Sri Ramakrishna now is going to talk as if he's also a Pandit, a little bit, scholarly types of things. Yeah, master. One can understand the Bhagavata well if one has already studied the Nyaya, the Vedanta, and other systems of philosophy. Isn't that so? So he's having a nice conversation with the son, also testing the son a little, gauging. As he also has that spiritual bent that his father has. So Bhagavata, we take to be highly devotional. This is Bhagavata Purana, mostly about the incidents in the life of Krishna and Radha and all of that, highly devotional. But it's also filled with deep philosophical content, even Advaitic verses and things. And also the Sanskrit is a little difficult. And there's some of the reasoning and everything. So what Ramakrishna says is really true. One can understand the Bhagavata well if one has already studied the Nyaya, the Vedanta, and other systems of philosophy. The Nyaya is basically logic. Logic. How do we know? How do we gauge whether something is true or not? We have standards. We have to apply those. Either we see it, or we hear it, or we infer it, or somebody tells us. Different ways of but something has to meet a certain standard for us to accept it as true. This is the purpose of Nyaya. So Nyaya serves all of the schools. All of the schools. They will all have their own list of pramanas. Usually 3. Vedanta has 6. This Gaudiya Vaishnava school, they have 10 pramanas. But they all basically boil down to the main 3. Anyhow. So Pandit son. Yes, sir. It is very necessary to study the Sankhya philosophy. The Sankhya philosophy, this is a bit of a curious thing. The Sankhya philosophy is fully realistic, not materialistic, but realistic in that it doesn't treat this world as an appearance without any substance to it. It doesn't treat it as the result of Maya. It takes this world in a very scientific type of way that there are certain constituents to it, which they call gunas, or we can say take it as the 5 elements, or we can take it as matter and energy. We can understand it in different ways, and it becomes manifest for a certain period of time, then unmanifest, and again, this cycle will go back and forth. Now, the Upanishads and most of Vedanta accepts almost all of the principles of Vedanta, but they don't like this idea that it has its own independence. It's independent in that we can explain everything in terms of prakriti, nature, but it needs the presence of Purusha, Ishvara, we can say, in order to function. And that provides this light of consciousness, of course. But the Upanishads and most of Vedanta, they'll accept the cosmology, the psychology, and everything, the idea of gunas, all of that. But they'll say that everything ultimately is traced back to Brahman itself. Brahman is the ultimate source, and Brahman is the material source, material cause of the universe, as well as the instrumental cause. So there'll be a inherent distinction at the very end. But otherwise, they're friends. Otherwise, we read the Bhagavad Gita. Half of it is Sankhya philosophy. Yeah, so much with gunas and cosmology and creation and everything. So he's saying here, this Pandit son, yes, sir, it is very necessary to study the Sankhya philosophy. The conversation went on. Sri Ramakrishna was leaning against a big pillow. The devotees were sitting on the floor. Lying in that position, the master began to sing. Brother, joyfully cling to God, thus striving someday you may attain him. Now, it depends on his mood. there's another incident where somebody is singing this and he says, stop. What kind of song is that? Someday. Don't say someday. No, I must realize God this very moment. Have that type of attitude. Here he's in a little different mood. So he's singing. I don't know what that song is exactly, but is it a Vaishnava song? Who wrote it? Mirabai. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Maitili. Okay. So then it won't be Mirabai. Maitili will be this Vaishnava, this Bengal, Varajbali, that type of thing. Yeah. Anyhow, it doesn't matter. But the point is that even Sri Ramakrishna had his different moods. That there'll be times when he'll see the beauty in this idea that striving one day with that longing, one day we'll realize God. And then other times he'll say, no, I must realize this very moment. He'll be in a different mood. That's all. Yeah.
The Bengali version is breaking Mirabai anteriorly.
Okay. So that means it really should be, I don't know, what her language was it real Hindi or was Marathi Hindi or? Huh? Rajasthani. It'd be some type of Rajasthani Hindi. Huh?
In the Bengali version, it is.
Yeah.
And the last line.
Okay, so it's Mirabai song. Yeah, Mirabai. She was tremendously. Her degree of devotion and the songs that she composed are just exquisite. Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, not that I can understand all the words or anything, but still, yeah. Their host entered the room and saluted Sri Ramakrishna. He was a pious man and devoted to the master. The pundit's son was still there. The master asked if Panini, the Sanskrit grammar, was taught in the schools. He further asked about the Nyaya and the Vedanta philosophies. Why Thakur is so interested? This is the only time we hear him asking these types of questions. The host did not show much interest in the discussion and changed the subject. Okay, so that was a good idea. Host, revered sir, what is the way for us? Now, this is the most common question that Sri Ramakrishna was asked. Upai ki. How to realize God. We know all the philosophy. We know all of the theory and everything. We know there's the ultimate goal of life. But how do we do it? This is the question. And Sri Ramakrishna, he has his bucket, his list of different things. It changes from time to time. I would say most common is a holy company, and second will be go into solitude. But it depends on his mood. Sometimes prayer, sometimes just repeating all different things. So here he says, Master, chanting the name and glories of God, he puts first. Now these Marwaris are really bhaktas. They're following this path of devotion. Here they're worshiping Krishna, so they'll be very attached to this idea of a japa, repeating the name of God and singing these bhajans and everything. So Thakur, we know he had this theory that one should always encourage people along the lines of their spiritual practice and nature and everything. He used to say, don't disturb anybody's attitude. Karabhav noshto korona. Yeah, don't disturb anybody's. If they have some, their main spiritual practice is chanting and singing and bhajan and everything, he'll encourage them. If the main thing is meditation, he'll encourage them. If they're too one-sided, he'll try to correct it a little bit. Otherwise, he's always trying to encourage people along the path that they follow. So chanting the name and glories of God, then living in the company of holy men, and 3, earnestly praying to God. Not mentioning meditation here. Perhaps he knows that these are active people, they're business people. They're constantly doing their trade and trying to make money and everything. Even though they're very pious people, that meditation may not be suited, may not be the right thing for them. So this company of the holy, this is the easiest. This is the most effortless way of advancing in spiritual life. This is painless, a joyful way. Yeah, living in the company of these great souls that just exude this love of God and love of everyone and compassion and kindness and sweetness and everything. It just can fill somebody up. This is the best, the easiest possible way of making and getting conviction in spiritual life. That we see the results of a life of spiritual practice, that we get some conviction. But still, he says, first, chanting the name and glories of God, living in the company of holy men, and earnestly praying to God. Post, please bless me, sir, that I may pay less and less attention to worldly things. Now, Thakur will tease him because sometimes in the presence of Sri Ramakrishna, people felt some momentary type of vairagya. Yeah. Like one time the Keshav, when in the presence of Sri Ramakrishna, he's saying that no, we have to dive deep into the ocean. And so Thakur teased him. Yeah, and what about them? He's pointing to, because they used to have some type of curtain or something like that, the screen door, where all the women were on one side. That means that, yeah, you may feel that like that. Now you're going to leave here and go home with your wife and family and everything. So he would tease them a little bit. So here, this is very funny. Master smiling. How much attention do you give to the world? 50%. Laughter. Host, you know that, sir. So that means that 99% of their mind is given to the world. They're pious people, but the mind will be filled with business dealings and things like in family and raising the kids and looking after, doing all the things that they have to do in the world. It's natural. Yeah. 50%, if we can all achieve 50%, that'd be fantastic. Huh? That's a big thing. Yeah. Yeah. How much time we spend driving a car, we want to make sure we don't get into an accident. Can we get 50% of the mind to God? We, some level we can perhaps, but anyhow, it's a curious question, a curious answer. So how much attention do you give the world? 50%. Host, you know that, sir. That means you know our plight. That rarely can we really, we give the mind to God for a moment, and then everything else is our desires and our ego and everything. We cannot achieve anything without the grace of a holy person like yourself, Master. If you please God, everyone will be pleased. It is God alone that exists in the heart of the holy man. Now, this is again Sri Ramakrishna's humility. Humility. And don't think that I personally have to be pleased. You please God, what does that mean? You lead a sincere spiritual life. And don't think of pleasing any individual, any personality, or anything like that. And don't do it so that Guru will say how wonderful you are, anything like that. Feel that we're living up to the ideal. This is enough. We live up to the ideal, and then we don't have to worry. If those who are not pleased with us, then forget them. Those who are pleased with us, and good. That's nice. But we're not doing it to please anybody. We're doing it because if we will please anyone, to please God, or that this is the ideal that we've devoted our life to, and this is why we're doing it. If we're happy that someone say, if the Guru says to us that I'm very pleased with your devotion and everything, of course we'll be happy. We shouldn't say I don't care. I'm not doing it for anything like that. But even in the world, if we do a job and we have an employer that we respect and somebody who really knows the business, and that employer comes and says, I've been watching the type of work that you're doing very good work. We should be pleased. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. This is some confirmation that we're on the right path. That's all. But we don't do it for that reason. That's the difference. And if we don't get it, we don't feel disappointed. Host, nothing, of course, remains unrealized when one attains God. If a man attains God, he can give up everything else. If a man gets a rupee, he gives up the joy of a penny. Yeah, this is very nice. This is the host speaking. Sri Ramakrishna could have said all of this. Master, a little spiritual discipline is necessary. Yeah. Now, this is always the question that some people will say that, yes, I practice Sharanagati, that everything I do, I rely on God, that I do everything, surrendering everything to God. But can it be done without some type of spiritual practice? Yeah, this is the thing. There may be a point where we can give up a lot of our formal practice, but after having completed it. So this spiritual discipline and having a routine, doing our meditation, doing our japa, our worship, whatever it is that we do, yeah, the mind is too fickle. The mind won't be able to maintain this full attitude of surrender until we've exhausted every possible avenue of God realization. And just like the bird on the mast of the ship, the bird has to fly as far as it can possibly fly until it realizes that it better get back or else it'll die. And does it in all directions, then can practice this Sharanagati. So this is when he says a little spiritual discipline is necessary. Uh, this, of course, depends on what we really understand as spiritual discipline and what we understand by a little. But at the very least, we should have some spiritual practice. If we don't have sadhana, spiritual practice, then what is a spiritual life? Yeah, this is something very, very important. This is why I laugh sometimes when I hear this spiritual but not religious. Sometimes it simply means spiritual, but I don't have to do anything. Yeah, yeah. No, sometimes it's very sincere. It may be very sincere. Yeah, but other times we see people like that, and we don't find them really doing any spiritual practice. Yeah, so there's a big distinction there. So a little spiritual discipline is necessary. Now he's talking to people who don't have time. These they're part of they're traders. They have their business. They're buying and selling. They have to operate their stores. They have their families, their children to raise, all sorts of things. So for them, yeah, if they can carve out 15, 20 minutes, half hour, something, the beginning of the day, end of the day, that'll be enough for them. This is what he's saying. Not enough for God realization, but enough that they can feel that they're, and the rest of the day they have to do everything as an offering, of course, to be karma yogis the rest of the time. But enough for them to feel that they're leading a good spiritual life. A little spiritual discipline is necessary. Through the practice of discipline, one gradually obtains divine joy. So he's not saying that one gets God realization through a little spiritual discipline. He's not saying that. He's saying that we get a taste for it. It becomes a joyful thing. Then we increase it. We go deeper and deeper and deeper. Then we can start talking about God realization. Yeah. But first, we have to get a taste for it. We have to develop a real attraction and attachment to spiritual life, spiritual practice. Then there's something safe about our spiritual life. If we feel that spiritual practice is something we look forward to, if we feel that it's something that if we don't do one day, we feel like this day has been wasted, then we're making some progress in spiritual life.
He says here also, bhakti is the only essential thing.
Yes, that we'll get, of course.
And then he says, one obtains love of God by.
Yeah. Anyhow, let's follow this. Go in order here. A little spiritual discipline is necessary. Through the practice of discipline, one gradually obtains divine joy. Suppose a jar with money inside is hidden deep under the earth, and someone wants to possess it. In that case, he must take the trouble of digging for it. This treasure is within our hearts. We carry it with us, but it's covered. It's covered by our preoccupation with everything else. It's covered with our lack of awareness that it's there, and also our lack of interest, and the fact that we're satisfied with everything else. So suppose a jar with money inside is hidden deep under the earth and someone wants to possess it. In that case, he must take the trouble of digging for it. As he digs, he perspires. That means we have to work hard. After much digging, the spade strikes the metal jar. So now we know that what we were looking for is real. And now it's not just some false desire that we have, or some unrealistic belief. We know that it's real. The spade strikes the metal jar. He feels a thrill at the sound. The more sound the spade makes striking against the jar, the more joy he feels. He hasn't even opened it yet. He hasn't found it or taken it out and opened it and found the gems. Just this much. So first, we have to develop that conviction that the divine treasure is within us, within the heart. Then we have to start to feel that it's real. And then we have to feel that, yes, we can make contact with that. And then we have to be able to really access it and really take the gems and experience that joy. Pray to Rama. Meditate on him. This idea of Rama, for those who belong to that school, means Ishvara. It means Brahman. Yeah. And very often this ayat, this Rama dwells within each and every individual. This indwelling presence of God. Pray to Rama, meditate on him. He will certainly provide you with everything. Host, revered sir, you are Rama himself. Now again, this depends on what Thakur's mood. That sometimes he'll say there was a blasphemy. How do you say that? Rama was Rama. Other times he'll say he was Rama, he was Krishna. So it depends on his mood. So he says, revered sir, you are Rama himself. Master, how was that? The waves belong to the river. Does the river belong to the waves? Now, this is partly because perhaps Ramakrishna feels that there's a little bit of flattery that is not out of such intense conviction and devotion that he's saying this. And maybe temporarily some feeling of great devotion is there, but that as soon as Thakur leaves, he may say, why did I say that? You're wrong. We don't know. This is trying to get the mind of this host. So anyhow, here's Ramakrishna says, how is that? The waves belong to the river. Does the river belong to the waves? This is a very common expression that Thakur uses. Actually from, I think, one of Shankaracharya's Sanskrit verse, one of his hymns. It's also in some of the Bengali songs and things. So that means that let me take the attitude that I'm just a wave in the ocean, that I'm a devotee and not the ocean itself. The attitude of the bhakta. Host, Rama dwells only in the hearts of holy men. He cannot be seen in any other way. There is no incarnation of God at the present time. Now, we of course have different theories about this avatar. In the Gita, we have one idea that the avatar comes in every age. What that means exactly, yuge. What it means exactly, we don't know. This one idea is almost every 500 years. If we look at Buddha and Christ and Chaitanya, something like that. But I think this Puranic idea is that there's no avatar, only Kalki will come at the very end. So that may be, I don't know much about these things, that may be what he's referring to. That because we know this Dwapara and Treta, this Rama and Krishna, that they came in the earlier yugas. So that's Ramakrishna. Now, now we'll look at it from the other side. At first he said, why do you say I'm Rama? And then he says, there's no avatar. He said, why do you say there's no avatar? So then Master smiling, how do you know there is no divine incarnation? The host remained silent. So now he's a little confused and afraid to say anything. Master, all cannot recognize an incarnation. When Narada visited Rama, Rama prostrated himself before Narada and said, we are worldly creatures. How can we be sanctified unless holy men like you visit us? Rama prostrated himself before Narada. This is Rama speaking. We are worldly creatures. How can we be sanctified unless holy men like you visit us? Further, Rama went into, so that's the end of that quote. Further, Rama went into exile in the forest to redeem his father's pledges. He saw that, since hearing of his exile, the rishis of the forest had been fasting. Many of them did not know that Rama was none other than the supreme Brahman. Yeah, so Thakur used to say that only 12 rishis recognize Rama as an avatar. The others only knew him as the son of Dasharatha. They respected him, yeah, and held him in the highest esteem and everything, but only there's a handful. And he used to say they were born as the gopis. Host. Now the host is going to again change his mind. Host. You too are that same Rama. Now Thakur again is going to change his mind. Master. For heaven's sake, never say that. So he can't win. This is a host. As Ramakrishna spoke these words, he bowed down to the host and said with folded hands that Rama dwells in all beings. He exists everywhere in the universe. I am your servant. It is Rama himself who has become all men, animals, and other living beings. So again, just as for Sri Ramakrishna, when he's talking about Kali, Mother Kali, in his mind is also the supreme absolute reality, or Saguna Brahman, Ishvara Brahman itself. Same thing with Rama, that it's never that historical character who went into exile in the forest. That's part of it, of course, but Rama as that indwelling presence, the Antaryaman, within all the beings. This is the Rama that because he's always saying that he could. Very rarely will he say that I see Krishna dwelling within all beings. It's always Rama. That's the one. Sometimes Divine Mother, but generally this idea of Rama. So. Host, but sir, we do not know that. See, this is the problem. This is the problem. We're looking for God everywhere else. And we don't know. We have to look within the heart. And then Sri Ramakrishna makes that statement that he makes many times. Whether you know it or not, you are Rama. Tumi jano or naya jano. Tumi Ram. He says this to Latu. He says it to others. Kashipur, especially. When he was in Kashipur, this is after he had that experience with the broken arm, and Divine Mother telling him, now see God dwelling with all beings, that he said, yes, that now I see this is the highest form of worship of God, seeing God dwelling within all beings. So he used to recite that very often, whether you know it or not. Doesn't matter whether you know or not, that God dwells within you. You are that Rama. Sometimes you would say, I see Sita in all women, Rama in all men. Different ways of explaining the same thing. Host, you are free from love and hatred. So again, there's this little play between the host and Sri Ramakrishna. As soon as he starts to flatter him a little bit, then he'll switch back to the other side, his human side. Master, how so? I engaged a carriage to bring me to Calcutta and advanced the coachman 3 annas, but he didn't turn up. I became very angry with him. He's a very wicked man. He made me suffer a lot. So this is the sweetness of the personality of Sri Ramakrishna. That is so human, so unassuming, so humble. Yeah, his humility. Yeah, Swami Sarvadevananji was reminding us of his humility, how some wealthy man came one day to Dakshineshwar, and he sees a Thakur there picking some flowers, and he says, "Yeah, pick me some flowers." He thinks he's just the gardener there. And Thakur, without saying anything, he does it. Yeah, he doesn't care. No sense of pride that way. Okay, I think we can stop here. So this is a break. Now, Sri Ramakrishna will take some rest, and then we'll continue with this chapter with the Marwaris. Yeah, Thakur, he respected them, and he said they're real Hindus because they followed all the rituals, and they weren't interested in a lot of materialistic types of things. This craze for Western materialism and pleasing the British and all of that, Brahmo Samaj types of things, they weren't interested in all of that. At the same time, he knew that being in the business community, that they made their livelihood by buying cheap and selling high. There's a profit. There's no other way around it. Yeah. So and they were very generous. They would bring food very often there, and we know Thakur, he wouldn't touch it. He wouldn't let anybody touch it. He said, "Save it for Naren." He is the only one that fire of vairagya and jnana, that fire of renunciation, that fire of knowledge can burn up any impurity that may be attached to food. For him, is this profit thing is a little bit like ill-gotten gains. Yeah. So, they were devoted to him. It's interesting, the different communities, the Marwari community, the Sikh community, and there were different, the Brahmos, how we had these different groups that were very much attached to him. Okay, so we'll stop here. Yeah.
Can I go back to that song again?
Yes.
It is not written by Mirabai.
Not written by Mirabai.
It is written like, it also Tare Mirabai. Taran Korechi Mirabai ka Taran Korechi. That's it.
Oh.
But Mirabai is not singing that.
Uh-huh.
Itself is not singing.
Oh.
It is past Onka and Banka and also Mirabai.
Okay.
Bad and good.
Okay. Om Niranjanam Nityamanandarupam Bhaktanukham Bhatadavikraham Ishavataram Parameshametyam Tam Ramakrishnam Chirasa Namama. We bow our heads before Sri Ramakrishna, who is stainless, of infinite nature, whose heart melts in sympathy for his devotees, who is an embodiment of the divine and the Supreme Lord, and ever worthy of our worship. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. Okay, thank you, everyone. So we're ending on the page 641, and next time we're almost at the end of this, and then we'll begin the chapter with the various devotees.